We talked recently about how in college football, a lot of quarterbacks are gone, right? You look at Texas, Ewers, gone. Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, gone. Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, gone. Mm-hmm. Howard, Ohio State, gone. On and on and on. Jackson Dart, gone from Ole Miss, et cetera, et cetera. All of these teams that have lost quarterbacks, with the exception of Miami, really, have replaced them with a guy they already had. You didn't have some crazy known quarterback movement in the transfer portal this year compared to years past. The top teams in college football, the ones that were in the playoffs, either return their guy or are replacing their guy with a guy they've already had. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to notice that in recruiting as well. Take the local example. I don't know if you've noticed this, hey, Dad, maybe not, but I think it's abundantly clear, glaringly obvious that Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding are spending more time on the 2026 class than they have, at least from what we can see, than any of their previous recruiting classes. They have been everywhere, offering everybody, seeing everybody, going to every school. More so than I've noticed in years past. And I think there's a reason for that, and I don't think it's centered around the 26 class is just this great recruiting class, and they can't miss these guys. Mm-hmm. I think they're looking at what was available in the portal and are preparing for that to be the norm. I might be connecting dots that aren't there. Maybe I'm totally off base. But according to 24/7, for what it's worth, Ole Miss has the number 2 transfer portal class. Mm-hmm. Last year they had number 1. These two classes are really far apart in terms of what you expect to be instant impact players in them. Now, they have a few. I really like what they've done at wide receiver. For example, I think they've done great at wide receiver. Like what they've done at linebacker. But the class has a lot of question marks. Can this guy translate to this level? They haven't done enough in the secondary, in my opinion, frankly. Talented guys on the defensive line haven't produced at their previous stops. There's a lot more questions in this class than last year's class, but it's still ranked number 2. I think that you're going to see this not only out of Ole Miss, who's been very portal heavy, but this might be, I think, moving forward in college football, more of what you're getting out of the portal as opposed to a bunch of talented dudes that you know about that you can go scoop up if you've got the money. I think Ole Miss saw what they were unable to do in the portal this year and what wasn't available and decided, got to go back to high school because the strategy that they've been implementing probably won't build the roster the same way that they've been able to in years past.
It's interesting because you don't know. I mean, maybe this year was an outlier, right? For whatever reason, the 12-team playoff probably played a role in that more guys got more. If they see more opportunity. And I think last year, there I don't know.
And it's revenue sharing. I think that's the biggest one.
Well, that's certainly some. And I think teams now are just better equipped to hold on to their stars a little bit. We've had 3-4 years of this. Teams have figured out how to work the portal for the most part to keep the guys they want to keep. I mean, how many players would you say Ole Miss lost in the portal this year they would have liked to have kept? I would say it's 3.
Lost in the portal that they would have liked to have kept. I think in a perfect world, if things were ideal from a relationship perspective, Micah Pettis would still be on their team, an experienced tackle. I know, he was a point of contention among fans. Yeah. He was a holding machine, all that, but he had a lot of experience playing tackle for you. You don't just love that guys like him leave.
State would have liked to have kept Craver. They would have liked to have kept Coleman. They would have liked to have kept Bryce Pollock. But other than that, everybody that left, State was more than happy with. I think teams are just figuring out how to keep their guys a little bit better nowadays. That being said, I mean, getting into the high school game, I get it. And Ole Miss should be more successful in it now than they would have been maybe 5 years ago, because they've had such success over the last 5 years, right? Now Ole Miss is a hot name. They're a hot product. And Kiffin and Golding have a lot of credit built up with these kids. You're talking about kids that You have to think about it in these terms, right? Since these kids basically got into junior high, Ole Miss has been good in football. If you're going to say, well, Ole Miss wasn't good 10 years ago, nobody cares. Nobody cares when those kids were 8.
Yeah, 10 years ago, the guys in the living rooms that they were in were 7.
Yeah, so it doesn't make any difference. So that might be a good strategy. This is a good year in state. You're going to have a lot of competition for the top guys from the out-of-state teams. And state obviously is going to try to get their share as well. So we'll see if that works out for them, because you and I both know that the first, especially pre-Golding kind of turned this around a little bit.
No doubt.
The first few years, like Lane Kiffin was not in these high schools and not talking to these coaches, right? I mean, it was kind of sort of the undercurrent of, well, Lane Kiffin doesn't have a lot of these good relationships at the high schools. I think Golding came in and was like, we have to change that. We have to get these players. And you've seen the results. They've been very successful. They've been selective in their high school recruiting the last couple of years, but they've gotten a lot of good guys. They've missed on a few here and there. They would have liked to have gotten Deuce Knight, a season ago, just as an example. But by and large, Ole Miss has been able to get some of the top players in the state to come to Oxford. So for them to, if you think they're going to make a full change, I don't know that that's the best idea. Because
not a full change, but definitely emphasizing high school.
Yeah, with Ole Miss, the way they've been successful is building through the portal, and I just feel like I wouldn't want to get too far away from that. I would not want to change dance partners at this point.
And if you look at the defensive line, you mentioned Golding in particular is why they lose all these bodies on the defensive line, and they're largely going to be replaced by guys that they already had. I mean, you've got, for those of you that really follow recruiting, in-state guys like Franklin and Eccles and Harris, those are going to be guys that play heavy snaps for this team. And obviously Centurion Perkins returning too. As opposed to going out and getting defensive tackles in the portal, they're using the guys they've already got. Akalo Stone, they got another year of eligibility. So stuff like that.